The black void of space stretched endlessly, silent and cold. Then, a shimmer appeared near the edge of the Sol system. A distortion, like a ripple in still water. From that distortion, a shape began to emerge. The Terran Warship. Vigilant Dawn drifted into view, massive and ancient, its surface marked by time and war. The ship had been silent for centuries, resting near Mars, a forgotten relic from a war the galaxy thought was long over. But now it moved again, and that movement changed everything. Captain Mara Ingram stood at the command deck, staring at the deep black ahead. Her reflection looked back at her through the glass, calm, sharp, but heavy with the weight of what was coming. The ship's control panels glowed dimly, and the low hum of the engines filled the air like a heartbeat. It was not just a sound, it was a warning. "Captain," her first officer, Lieutenant Eris, said quietly. "External sensors confirm multiple fleets entering Sol's outer boundary. They're broadcasting council codes." Mara didn't look away from the stars. "How many?" "3 main fleets. Maybe more. And they're still coming." She exhaled slowly, her breath fogging against the cold glass. "They always come when they think we're weak." The Galactic Council's ships were beautiful, polished and arrogant, thousands of them gliding together in perfect formation. Their leaders believed humanity was extinct or at best broken. They didn't remember the wars that had made the Terrans what they were. To them, humanity was a rumor. To Captain Mara, it was a fire waiting to burn again. Deep inside the ship, systems came alive one after another. Engines pulsed with white-blue energy. Massive weapon arrays unfolded from armored housings. The AI core, Argent Mind, reactivated, its voice echoing softly through the bridge. Primary systems online. All reactors stable. Weapons charging at 40%. "Welcome back, Captain." Mara smiled faintly. "It's been a long time, Argent." "Too long," the AI replied. "And they have forgotten the cost of war." Outside, the alien fleet spread across space like a glittering storm. Their commanders watched the human ship with curiosity, not fear. One admiral laughed in his command chair. "A Terran relic? A ship from the old wars? What threat could that be?" But when they scanned it, their instruments screamed with errors. The readings didn't make sense. The ship's energy field didn't match any known pattern. Some systems even crashed trying to process the data. Still, the admiral waved his hand. "Destroy it." The first plasma volley launched. Blue fire streaked through the void, crossing millions of kilometers in seconds. The impact hit the Vigilant Dawn square on the hull, but there was no explosion. The energy bent, twisted, and vanished into nothing. On the Terran bridge, Mara's expression didn't change. "Shields holding?" "Completely, Captain," Urs said. "No damage," Mara nodded. "They fired the first shot. They've chosen." All across the bridge, her crew felt the shift. A deep, silent pressure in their chests. The lights dimmed. The reactor hum grew louder. The warship was awakening. "Begin counterattack," Mara said. The AI's voice deepened. "Permission confirmed." Outside, the Vigilant Dawn glowed brighter. A storm of energy gathered along its spine, lines of orange and white light crawling like veins across its surface. Then the forward cannon fired. The beam was not bright, it was pure. It cut through the void silently, and everything it touched simply ceased to exist. Ships, shields, even space itself rippled under the force. The lead alien fleet vanished in seconds. Where 1,000 ships had been, now there was only debris and drifting light. The remaining fleets froze. Communications channels erupted in panic. Some captains screamed orders. Others tried to retreat. But retreat was no longer possible. The Terran ship moved again, and every movement bent reality. From across the galaxy, sensors detected the event. Worlds paused. In the council chambers, the leaders stared at the data, pale and silent. "It's not possible," one whispered. "That ship was destroyed centuries ago." "It wasn't," another replied grimly. "It was waiting." On the Vigilant Dawn, Captain Mara looked over her shoulder at her crew. They were young, too young, but their faces burned with pride and fear. "Remember this moment," she said quietly. "The galaxy will too." "Message from the council," Eris reported. "They're demanding we cease fire immediately." Mara almost laughed. "They come into Sol space with weapons drawn and think they can order us. Tell them the Terrans don't kneel." The message was sent, not in words but in fire. Another beam tore through the void, cutting through the enemy's reinforcement line. The shockwave rippled across the nearby moons, scattering fragments of light and rock. Argent's voice echoed softly again. Captain, shall I prepare full planetary defense protocols? Mara closed her eyes for a brief moment. No, not yet. Let them see first. Let them understand what they've awakened. Beyond the red planet, alien wreckage drifted silently through the stars. The survivors fled in chaos, their formations breaking apart. Across the galactic networks, the same message began to spread. An old forbidden name resurfacing after centuries of silence. The Terrans have returned. Inside the command deck, the crew stood still, staring out into the endless black. They knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would come for them again, but this time, humanity would not hide. Captain Mara turned toward the Earth's faint blue glow far ahead. Signal the old colonies, she said softly. Tell them, it's time. And as the vigilant dawn drifted forward, its engines roaring back to life, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. The warship had moved, and the galaxy's fate was already sealed. The remains of the alien fleets floated silently, glowing faintly in the cold dark. The once proud armada that had entered Sol space now drifted as broken metal and dying light. Captain Mara Ingram stood motionless on the bridge of the vigilant dawn, her gaze fixed on the wreckage outside the viewport. No one spoke. The hum of the ship's systems was the only sound. Humanity had fired its first shot in centuries, and the galaxy had felt it. Status report, she said finally. Shield stable. Weapons cooled. No internal damage, Eris replied. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. We lost one drone wing during the engagement. All crew accounted for. Mara nodded slowly. Good, begin debris scans. I want to know if any ships survived. As the bridge crew carried out her orders, the AI's voice filled the air once again. Multiple distress beacons detected, Captain. Alien survivors are requesting evacuation. Standard galactic transmission codes. Mara's expression didn't change. Ignore them. For a long moment, the bridge was silent. Then Eris asked softly, Captain, they're unarmed now. Should we really? They invaded Sol space, Mara interrupted, her tone calm but cold. They brought weapons to Earth's doorstep. They knew the risk. Eris lowered his eyes and said nothing more. The silence stretched on until the AI broke it again. Incoming long-range transmission. Origin Galactic Council Command. Encryption level maximum. Put it through, Mara said. The holographic display in the center of the bridge flickered to life. A tall alien figure appeared. A member of the council species with silver skin and 6 glowing eyes. His tone was sharp, controlled, but fear bled through every word. Terran vessel Vigilant Dawn, this is Council High Speaker Tralkesh. You have violated interstellar law. You will power down immediately and submit to custody. Failure to comply will be seen as an act of war. Mara tilted her head slightly. You brought war to us, Speaker. We only answered. Tralkesh's expression twisted. You are a remnant of a dead empire. Humanity was destroyed for a reason. You cannot rise again. Mara's lips curved faintly into a smile. Destroyed? Look around you, Speaker. We never died. We waited. The hologram flickered as the connection broke abruptly. The AI spoke again. Captain, they are mobilizing new fleets from the central sectors. Estimated time to arrival in Sol space, 30 hours. Mara turned toward the stars. Then we don't have much time. Deep within the ship, the engines rumbled as power levels climbed. Crew members moved quickly, checking systems, preparing for what they all knew was coming. This was no longer a defensive action, it was war. Eris approached quietly. Captain, if they send their full forces, even the Vigilant Dawn can't hold forever. Mara looked at him, her expression unreadable. I know, that's why we won't wait for them to come. Eris frowned. You mean, we go to them? She nodded. They think they control the stars. Let's remind them who built the first jump drives, who fought when the galaxy still crawled. Set course for Vega Prime. That's their main relay hub. If we take that, the entire council network falls blind. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy looks, but no one argued. Orders from a Terran captain were not debated. They were executed. Moments later, the AI announced, jump drive sequence initiated. Space-time distortion building. The view outside the ship began to warp, stars stretching into thin lines of light. The entire vessel shuddered as energy surged through its core. Then in an instant, the Vigilant Dawn vanished. When it reappeared, it hung above Vega Prime, a vast station world glittering with orbital defenses and fleets stationed across the system. The sudden arrival triggered alarms across every channel. Thousands of ships scrambled to intercept. Mara stared at the planet below, her voice calm. Open broadcast on all frequencies. Her voice carried across the void, translated into 100 alien tongues. This is the Terran Warship Vigilant Dawn. You sent fleets to our home. Now we've come to yours. Stand down or be destroyed. The answer came quickly. Plasma fire and missiles screaming through space. The first wave hit the Vigilant Dawn's shields, lighting up the blackness in a storm of color. The ship trembled but held steady. Return fire, Mara said. The Terran warship came alive. Its cannons opened in a thunderous sequence, beams cutting through enemy lines with surgical precision. Alien ships exploded one after another, their formation collapsing under the impossible power of a single human vessel. But the enemy kept coming, hundreds of ships, then thousands. Even with the Vigilant Dawn's unmatched weaponry, the numbers were overwhelming. The bridge shook with every impact. Shields at 70%, Eris shouted. Hold steady, Mara said, gripping the rail in front of her. Argent reroute secondary power to the forward batteries. Confirmed. The ship's cannons glowed brighter, burning through the darkness. In seconds, the largest enemy carrier split in two, its remains falling toward Vega Prime's upper atmosphere. But the Terran ship wasn't untouched. Cracks of light appeared along its armor, the result of countless impacts. Captain, the AI warned, if we stay, the ship will not survive. Mara's eyes hardened. Then let's make it count. She opened a secure channel, transmitting a single pulse into deep space, a coded signal known only to old Terran command. Far away, scattered remnants of the Terran network received it. Hidden colonies, sleeper ships, ancient outposts long thought dead. One by one they awakened. Across forgotten systems, Terran beacons lit up, answering the call. Humanity's silence was over. Captain, Eris said, watching the readings, we've done it. The old network, it's alive again. Mara smiled faintly. Good. Now they'll know humanity still stands. The Vigilant Dawn turned, engines burning bright. With a burst of light, it tore through the enemy formation and jumped away, leaving behind a shattered armada and a trembling world. In the command chambers of the Galactic Council, chaos erupted. The speaker shouted orders, demanding to know how one Terran ship could destroy half their forces. But deep inside, every leader knew the truth. The galaxy had awakened a storm it could no longer control. Far away, in the endless dark, the Vigilant Dawn drifted silently once more. Its hull burned and cracked, but its engines still glowed. Captain Mara stood at the viewport, her reflection surrounded by the soft blue of distant stars. They thought they ended us, she whispered. But they only taught us to wait. And somewhere in the black, the old Terran fleet began to stir, 1,000 forgotten giants rising once more, ready to finish what had begun. The galaxy had no idea that the warship's movement was not the end. It was only the arrival. The Vigilant Dawn drifted through the darkness, its engines dimmed to a low blue glow. The scars from Vega Prime still burned across its hull, blackened metal, shattered plating, and glowing fissures where the shields had failed. Inside, the ship was quiet, not with peace but with exhaustion. Every crew member moved carefully, whispering as if afraid to disturb the sleeping giant they rode. Captain Mara stood on the observation deck, watching a dying star flicker in the distance. Her reflection looked older now, her uniform torn and marked with smoke. The galaxy knew her name again. For the first time in centuries, the word Terran echoed through every system, not as myth but as a warning. Her comms officer broke the silence. Captain, long-range transmissions are flooding in. Dozens of systems responding to our signal. Some claim to be old Terran colonies. Others are unknown. Mara turned slowly. Put them through one by one. Let's see who remembers their bloodline. The holographic display flickered, showing face after face. Some human, some not entirely. Generations had passed since the fall of the Terran Empire, and in the corners of the galaxy humanity had adapted, changed. A man with silver eyes from the Helios rim bowed his head. We thought Earth was gone, he said. You bring proof that it still breathes. It breathes, Mara replied. And it remembers. Each connection added strength to a network that had been asleep for ages. Small colonies, hidden fleets, secret research stations, all linked together again under the same signal. The Terran network was rebuilding itself. Meanwhile, far across the stars, the Galactic Council burned with panic. Fleets scrambled to fortify key worlds, Communication hubs overflowed with urgent transmissions, and propaganda filled the airwaves. Humanity has returned. Unite against the Terran threat. But beneath the speeches and orders, fear spread faster than light. The Council had ruled for centuries without challenge. Now one Terran ship had undone that illusion. On Vega Prime, Council scientists worked frantically to analyze the energy weapon that had destroyed their fleets. Every test failed. The readings broke their instruments. The math defied their logic. "It's not technology," one engineer said in horror. "It's something else. Something alive inside the weapon's core." Back on the Vigilant Dawn, the AI Argent Mind was calculating trajectories, tracking the movement of enemy fleets. "Captain," it said, its voice softer than before, "Council reinforcements are reorganizing near Arcturus. They will strike Earth directly within 40 hours. Mara didn't react at first. She simply kept watching the dying star. "They want to burn our home," she said quietly. "They think it will break us again." Eris stepped closer. "If they reach Earth, billions will die, Captain." "We need allies." Mara turned toward him. "We have them," she said. "They just don't know it yet." She opened a secure channel, transmitting to all the reawakened Terran colonies. "This is Captain Mara Ingram of the Vigilant Dawn. The Council moves on Earth. Every colony that carries the name of humanity, every ship, every soldier, every forgotten outpost, you are called to return. The homeworld needs you." Her voice carried through space, reaching places untouched by light for centuries. Some who heard it wept. Others saluted through tears. In one mining colony, a boy stared at the stars and whispered, "Earth." Across the galaxy, engines began to burn. Inside the bridge, the ship's systems roared back to life. The crew felt the energy change. It was no longer just a ship. It was becoming a symbol, a beacon. Humanity's fire had reignited. "Argent," Mara said. "Plot a jump route to intercept the Council fleet before it reaches Sol. That will place us against an armada of over 8,000 ships, Captain." "Good," she said softly. "Then they won't miss us." The AI hesitated, almost as if it could feel doubt. "Understood." Moments later, the ship's engines began to pulse with light. The stars outside stretched, space itself twisting. Within seconds, the Vigilant Dawn vanished again, tearing across the fabric of reality. When it reappeared, it was near the outer edge of the Sol system. Ahead lay the Council's main fleet, a wall of light and metal that filled the void from one horizon to the next. Massive carriers, fortress ships, drone swarms, enough firepower to destroy a planet twice over. And at the heart of that armada, a flagship larger than cities, glowing with the power of 3 suns. Aris stared at the tactical display. "Captain, we can't fight that alone." Mara didn't blink. "Who said we're alone?" As if answering her, dozens of signals appeared behind the Vigilant Dawn, then hundreds. Terran ships, old and new, emerging from hyperspace. Colony fleets, scavenger vessels, war relics reawakened from the dark. Each bore the same signal. The old Terran crest, once banned by the Council, now burning again like a star. The comms filled with voices. "This is Outpost Theta reporting. Weapons online. Helios fleet standing by. Mars defense wing ready for orders. Captain, for the first time in hundreds of years, humanity had returned to the battlefield together. Transmit on open frequency," Mara said. Her voice was steady, cold as steel. "To the Council fleet." She waited a moment, then spoke, her words echoing across the void. "You stand at Earth's gate. You have one chance to leave. If you don't, there will be no second message." There was silence. Then laughter from the Council commanders filled the channels. "You think a handful of ancient ships can stop the galaxy's might?" One sneered. Mara's lips curved into a faint smile. "We don't need to stop the galaxy. We just need to remind it who taught it to fight." The Vigilant Dawn's lights flared. The Terran fleet spread into formation, thousands of ships locking into perfect sync, guided by the shared code of their ancestors. In that moment, every Terran vessel became one heartbeat, one will. Then the void erupted. Weapons blazed across the blackness. Plasma, missiles, light beams, chaos. The Council's fleets fired in waves, their firepower shaking space itself. But the Terran ships fought like no other species. They moved with purpose, precision, and rage born of centuries of silence. On the Vigilant Dawn, the main cannon charged once more, its hum rising like thunder. The AI's voice cut through the noise. "Primary weapon ready. awaiting command. Mara's eyes glowed with the reflection of the weapon's light. Fire! The beam lanced forward, slicing through the void. It struck the heart of the Council's flagship. For a brief instant, the universe went white, and when the light faded, the massive ship was gone. The Council fleets faltered. Some broke formation, others turned and fled. The Terran network pressed forward, unstoppable, the soundless roar of vengeance spreading across the stars. When it was over, silence returned. Only wreckage remained. Mara stood on the bridge, her crew watching her quietly. Status? She asked. Eris smiled faintly. Victory, Captain. Earth is safe. Mara looked out toward the faint blue dot in the distance.
No, she said softly.
Earth is awake. The vigilant dawn floated silently above the battlefield, its hull glowing with the fires of rebirth. The stars shimmered around it like witnesses to something ancient returning, something the galaxy had forgotten to fear. And in that endless dark, humanity whispered back to the stars, "We're home." The stars burned cold and distant as the vigilant dawn drifted among the remains of the battle. Fragments of shattered ships sparkled like dying embers, slowly fading into the silence of space. The Terran fleet hung in formation behind her, proud and wounded, their hulls marked with the scars of victory. What had been whispers in the dark was now a storm spreading across the galaxy. The Terrans were back, and every civilization was watching. Captain Mara Ingram stood before the observation glass, her hands resting behind her back. Her reflection flickered against the wreckage outside. The weight of what she had unleashed pressed on her shoulders like gravity. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The Council would never forgive what she had done. Eris stepped closer, carrying a datapad glowing with incoming reports. Captain, we've received over 100 transmissions in the last hour. Some from human colonies pledging allegiance, others from alien worlds. Afraid, confused, or both, Mara didn't turn. And the Council? He hesitated. Their main fleets are retreating to the core systems. But intelligence shows they're gathering reinforcements. Billions of troops, entire armadas. They're preparing for total war. Mara exhaled slowly. Of course they are. Fear always breeds desperation. She looked over her shoulder. But we won't give them the chance to strike first. The AI Argent Mind spoke from the central console, its voice even but edged with unease. Captain, our energy reserves are depleted. Hull integrity at 61%. If we engage another full-scale battle before refit, probability of survival falls below 30%. We're not engaging yet, she said. We're planning. The crew exchanged glances. They had seen the vigilant dawn face impossible odds and survive, but even they knew the limits of steel and fire. Still, none spoke against her. Down in the engineering decks, sparks showered from damaged conduits as technicians worked in near darkness. The hum of the reactors had grown unstable, a reminder that even ancient power had limits. The crew moved with quiet determination. They were no longer just soldiers, they were symbols. Far beyond Sol, the galaxy trembled. On the capital world of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Emergency meetings stretched for days. Leaders screamed, argued, and pointed fingers. The once united council was cracking under the weight of fear. Some demanded peace talks with the Terrans. Others called for extermination. None could agree on what to do next. In one shadowed chamber, Council Speaker Tralkesh stood before the projection of the destroyed flagship. The image played again and again, the moment the vigilant dawn's beam had torn through the heart of their fleet. His claws tightened until they drew blood. "You think they can rule again?" he hissed. "Then we will remind them what fear truly is." He turned toward his advisors. "Activate Project Veil." Across the galaxy, secret facilities came alive. Hidden weapons long buried under treaties began to hum with power. The Council was preparing something far darker than open war. Back aboard the vigilant dawn, Mara sat alone in her quarters, staring at a small holoprojector on her desk. It displayed an old image, a family portrait from centuries ago, preserved from before the fall. A man, a woman, and a young girl with dark hair and bright eyes. Her daughter. Mara hadn't aged since that picture was taken. She touched the image softly, her voice barely a whisper. "You said we'd come home when it was safe, Alara. Maybe now. Maybe soon." A chime interrupted her thoughts. "Captain," Eris's voice came through the intercom. "You need to see this." She rose and returned to the bridge. The holo display in the center of the room flickered with dozens of signals. These are coming from the edge of the Orion Rim, Eris said. Unregistered energy readings. Artificial, massive, the AI added. Energy signatures match no known technology. Source Council territory. Mara studied the data. The readings were strange, cold, precise, and unnatural. They're building something, she murmured. Something they've been hiding. Should we send scouts? Eris asked. She shook her head. No, we go ourselves, Eris blinked. Captain, we can't. We must, she said, cutting him off. We started this war by showing them what humanity can do. Now we finish it by seeing what they're planning. Prepare the ship for a silent jump. Within minutes, the Vigilant Dawn systems powered down to minimum levels. Lights dimmed, engines hushed, and every trace of energy output dropped to near invisibility. Then, with a soft ripple, the ship vanished from known space. When it reappeared, it hung above a dead star, cold and hollow. Around it floated a structure larger than a moon, an impossible ring of black metal that seemed to drink light itself. Even the void around it felt wrong, distorted. Mara's eyes narrowed. What is that? Argent's voice lowered. I detect gravitational anomalies. The structure is bending spacetime on a planetary scale. Whatever this is, it was not meant for defense. Eris stared at the display. It's a weapon. Mara nodded slowly. No, it's worse. It's extinction. The Council's secret weapon was real, a device capable of collapsing entire star systems, a final answer to humanity's return. Captain, Argent said, if they activate that, not just Sol, but every Terran system could be erased. Mara stood silent for a moment, her mind racing. Then she spoke with quiet resolve. Then we'll destroy it first. The crew stared at her in disbelief. The ring was massive, tens of thousands of kilometers wide, defended by fleets and automated weapons. Attacking it was suicide. Captain, Eris began, there's no way we can— There's always a way, she said firmly. If we fail, humanity dies. If we succeed, the galaxy changes forever. Argent's voice turned steady again. Understood. Plotting attack vectors. The ship's lights flared to life once more, engines rumbling like thunder. For the first time since the war began, there was no fear in the crew's faces. Only purpose. Mara looked out at the monstrous ring one last time. They wanted to erase us, she said quietly. Now they'll learn that humans don't vanish. We endure. The Vigilant Dawn accelerated toward the structure, its weapons charging. The darkness seemed to twist as the ship cut through the void, a single spark of defiance against the weight of eternity. And as it approached, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The Terran Warship was moving once again, and the fate of the galaxy would soon be decided. The Vigilant Dawn moved silently through the void, its massive form sliding closer to the dark ring. The structure loomed ahead like a wound in space, swallowing every glimmer of light around it. The closer they got, the more unnatural it seemed. The stars near it flickered and stretched as if reality itself struggled to exist near the weapon. Inside the Terran Warship, the air was tense. No one spoke above a whisper. Crew members worked quickly, hands moving over glowing consoles, sweat beading on their foreheads. They all knew this mission could be their last. Captain Mara Ingram stood at the center of the bridge, her gaze fixed on the main display. The black ring rotated slowly, drawing in streams of energy from nearby stars. The readings were impossible, power levels beyond anything the galaxy had ever recorded. Argent, she said quietly, give me a full scan. The AI's voice echoed through the bridge. Running analysis. Composition, unknown alloy. Function, gravitational weaponry capable of stellar collapse. Estimated yield, entire solar system annihilation. Eris stared at the data in disbelief. They built something that can destroy suns? How is that even possible? They learned it from us, Mara said softly. The bridge fell silent. Her words carried weight no one wanted to acknowledge. Long before the fall, humanity's scientists had begun studying star-folding technology, ways to harness the collapse of a star as a weapon. But the project was buried, destroyed, or so they had thought. The Council must have salvaged the remains and turned it into this. Captain, the AI continued, Council fleets detected. 2 main formations guarding the ring. Activation countdown detected. 20 hours until full charge. Mara's expression hardened. Then we don't have time for fear. We take it down before they fire. Eris hesitated. Captain, we can't face two fleets in that thing at once. We'll be vaporized before we even get close. Mara turned to him, her eyes calm but fierce. You're right. That's why we're not going in alone. The comms officer blinked. Sir? Transmit to all Terran frequencies, she said. Wideband broadcast. I don't care if the entire galaxy hears us. Moments later, her voice spread across the stars. This is Captain Mara Ingram of the Vigilant Dawn. The Galactic Council has built a weapon capable of burning entire systems. If they fire at everything Terran or alien dies, this is not just our fight. This is the moment we stand together or vanish forever. Her words traveled far beyond the battlefield. Across countless worlds, her message reached those who had once feared the Terrans, those who hated them, and those who secretly admired them. On distant colonies, on forgotten ships, in dark bars and bright command rooms, people listened. And for the first time, some listened not with fear, but with hope. Hours later, the darkness around the Vigilant Dawn began to flicker with light. One by one, signals appeared on their scanners. Human ships, old allies, and even a few alien vessels. Fleets from the fringe colonies, old Terran defense units, and rebel squadrons emerged from hyperspace. Eris stared in awe. Captain, they came. Mara smiled faintly. Of course they did. Humanity always answers the call. Multiple fleets reporting for duty, Argent said. Total combat strength, 300 ships and rising. Then let's make history, Mara replied. The Allied fleets formed up behind the Vigilant Dawn, engines glowing like a field of stars. Before them stretched the Black Ring, guarded by a wall of Council warships. The odds were impossible, but for the first time they had something stronger than numbers. They had purpose. The AI's voice broke the silence. Enemy formation approaching. Distance 10 million kilometers. Eris, Mara said calmly, bring us to attack range. Yes, Captain. The Vigilant Dawn surged forward, leading the charge. The Allied ships followed, their thrusters burning bright. In seconds, space exploded with light and soundless fury. Beams of plasma and particle fire crossed the void like glowing rivers. Missiles streaked through blackness, tearing holes in the enemy line. The Council responded instantly, unleashing their own barrage. Explosions rippled through the formation, tearing ships apart. The void became a storm of light and death. Inside the Terran Warship, alarms screamed as shields flared under the impact of enemy fire. Shields at 60%, Eris shouted. Hold formation, Mara ordered. Focus fire on their forward carriers. Open a path to the ring. The AI coordinated the fleet, sending commands faster than any human could think. Dozens of ships turned in perfect sync, their weapons firing as one. Council vessels shattered under the relentless assault, but the ring itself began to glow brighter, feeding on the energy of nearby stars. Its center filled with a swirling void, a darkness so deep it seemed to devour light itself. Argent's voice turned sharp. Captain, the weapon is activating. If it completes its charge, this entire sector will collapse. Mara clenched her fists. Then we end it now. All ships, cover the Vigilant Dawn. We're going in. The Terran flagship surged forward, cutting through wreckage and plasma fire. Its engines roared, leaving trails of blue fire in the darkness. Enemy ships tried to block its path, but the supporting fleets tore them apart one by one. Distance to target 200 kilometers, Eris reported. Energy readings off the charts. Arm the main cannon, Mara ordered. Target the ring's core. Argent's voice deepened, almost human. Charging. Core energy at 80%. 90. The bridge shook violently as enemy blasts struck the hull. Panels exploded, sparks rained down, and smoke filled the air. Fire, Mara shouted. The Vigilant Dawn unleashed its fury. The main cannon erupted in a beam of pure light. A pillar of burning energy that cut through the void and struck the ring dead center. For a moment there was silence, and then the universe screamed. The weapon imploded, folding in on itself. Space twisted, tearing reality apart. A shockwave spread through the system, scattering ships like leaves in a storm. The ring's black surface cracked, then shattered into 1,000 fragments of glowing debris. The bridge went dark. Only emergency lights flickered as the crew caught their breath. Argent, Mara whispered. Status? Weapon destroyed, the AI replied. Severe damage to hull. Power systems failing, but the galaxy is safe. Mara looked out at the fading light, the void slowly returning to silence. Around them, the surviving ships stabilized, engines flickering back to life. We did it, Eris said quietly. No, Mara said, her voice low but steady. We survived. Now we make sure it was worth it. Outside, the wreckage of the dark ring drifted like dust, scattering into the endless dark. The stars, long hidden behind its shadow, began to shine again. And in that faint starlight, the vigilant dawn floated, battered, scarred, but unbroken. Humanity's warship had moved once more, and with that movement, the galaxy had changed forever. The stars were quiet again. The aftermath of the battle left only drifting wreckage and the echo of what once was, a storm of light and fire now reduced to silence. The vigilant dawn floated among the remains, battered and scorched, her once polished hull now a patchwork of scars. Fires flickered faintly inside shattered corridors, and the faint hum of failing systems filled the air. Captain Mara Ingram stood in the middle of the dim bridge. The screens flickered with static, showing fragments of data, the remains of the Council fleets, the destroyed weapon, the debris of a war that had nearly ended everything. Her uniform was torn, streaked with ash and blood. Around her, the surviving crew worked with silent determination, their faces pale but resolute. Report, she said, her voice rough. Eris, his arm in a makeshift sling, looked up from his console. Primary reactors offline. Secondary systems running at 40%. Life support stable. But the hull's compromised on 3 decks. We've got maybe 20 hours before the structure gives way. Mara nodded slowly. And the fleet? Less than half made it out, Captain, Eris said quietly. But the Council fleet is gone. The weapon is gone. We did it. The words hung in the air. Victory. But it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. Argent's voice came through the ship's intercom, softer than usual. Captain, long-range sensors detect no hostile activity. The Council communications network is silent. Mara stared at the faint glow of the holographic display. Silent or hiding? Uncertain, the AI replied. But their central relay stations are dark. They've gone off the grid. She turned to Eris. Get me visuals on Earth. I need to see home. The main screen flickered, and a soft blue sphere appeared. Earth. The sight brought a hush to the bridge. It glowed faintly against the black, still alive, still turning. Cities shimmered with light. Oceans reflected the sun. For the first time in centuries, it looked peaceful. Mara took a deep breath. Signal the colonies. Tell them Sol is secure. Tell them humanity endures. Eris smiled faintly and nodded, but his eyes carried the same weight as hers. The cost of that endurance had been immense. In the quiet that followed, Mara walked to the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly, each one distant, untouchable. The galaxy had always been vast, but now it felt smaller, broken by the memory of what had been unleashed. Behind her, Eris spoke again. Captain, what happens now? The Council will rebuild eventually. We can't stay on the defensive forever. She didn't turn. We won't. There was strength in her voice again, tired but unbroken. We'll rebuild faster, smarter. The Council wanted to erase us from history. Now we'll write it ourselves. In the engineering decks below, sparks danced from broken conduits as the surviving crew worked in near darkness. They patched wires, sealed fractures, and rebooted ancient systems. The vigilant dawn groaned, but she lived. She had survived the impossible once again, and now she would carry the story forward. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the remnants of the Council were gathering. Hidden fleets drifted among asteroid fields, command ships cloaked in the shadows of dying suns. Speaker Tralkesh, his body wrapped in bandages from the battle's radiation burns, stared at a hollow map of the Sol system. His 6 glowing eyes burned with hatred. They think they've won, he rasped. They think their victory means peace. But peace is an illusion. The Terrans will overreach again, and when they do, we will be ready. Behind him, other Council members remained silent. Fear and pride warred in their expressions. Even now, they didn't fully understand what they had faced. The Terrans had fought not for conquest, but for memory, for the right to exist. That kind of resolve could not be erased with ships or weapons. Back on the vigilant dawn, Eris approached Mara with a datapad. Captain, we've received transmissions from the outer colonies. They want to send relief fleets, engineers, medics, whatever we need to rebuild. Mara smiled faintly. Good, for the first time we're united again. Let's not waste it. She walked to the center of the bridge and placed her hand on the main console. Argent, she said softly, Record this message for open broadcast. The AI's core glowed faintly. Recording, Captain. This is Captain Mara Ingram of the Terran Warship Vigilant Dawn. To every surviving human, every colony, every ship that still carries our name, you are not forgotten. We are not relics. We are the legacy of Earth, and we are alive. The Council tried to erase us, but humanity cannot be erased. We endure, we rise, we rebuild, and when we stand again, the stars themselves will know who we are. Her voice carried across space, echoing through the networks of the newly reawakened Terran colonies. Miners stopped working to listen. Pilots froze mid-flight. Entire worlds held their breath. When the message ended, the bridge was silent once more. Then from the communication array, responses began to pour in. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Voices from every corner of known space shouting the same word, Terra. The sound filled the ship. The crew smiled, some even cried quietly. For the first time, the word Terran wasn't spoken in fear. It was spoken in pride. Argent's voice broke through the noise. Captain, I detect multiple signals approaching Sol. Identification human. The fleets are returning. Mara looked toward Earth, the blue glow filling her vision. Good, she said. Let them come home. But deep inside she knew peace was fragile. The galaxy would never truly forget what had happened. The destruction of the Council weapon had sent shockwaves across every system. Fear would breed new enemies. There would always be another storm. She turned to her crew. Start repairs. I want the Vigilant Dawn ready for deployment again as soon as possible. Eris nodded, determination replacing exhaustion. Understood, Captain. As the crew returned to work, Mara stood alone watching the stars. Her reflection shimmered in the glass, surrounded by the faint blue glow of Earth. She whispered, We're home, but the fight isn't over. The camera drones outside the ship captured the moment. The massive Terran warship drifting above the blue planet, battle-scarred but undefeated, surrounded by the first returning fleets of a reborn civilization. The galaxy would speak of that image for centuries. The day the Terran warship moved again, the day humanity refused to fade, and in the silence between stars, as if the universe itself was listening, the hum of the Vigilant Dawn deepened once more, steady, strong, and eternal. The storm was not gone. It was waiting. The silence of victory never lasted long. In the deep black of space, peace was fragile, thin as glass, ready to shatter at the faintest tremor. The Vigilant Dawn hung over Earth like a guardian angel forged from steel and sorrow, her vast hull marked by burns and scars. Repair drones crawled across her surface, patching what they could. Inside, corridors echoed with the low hum of life returning. Wounded crew tended to, systems rebooted, new recruits arriving from the outer colonies. Humanity was rebuilding. But in the shadows of the galaxy, something was stirring. Captain Mara Ingram stood alone in the observation dome. Earth spun slowly below her, a living world that had somehow survived when everything else had burned. Lights shimmered across continents, flickering like the heartbeat of an old god. She pressed her hand against the glass. For the first time in centuries, the homeworld was safe. Yet she couldn't shake the weight in her chest. Safety was temporary. The galaxy would not forget what she had done. Captain, said a voice behind her. It was Eris, his arm now wrapped in a proper brace, uniform crisp again. Fleet Command has sent word. The new Terran Council is forming, representatives from every surviving colony. They want you to lead it. Mara didn't turn immediately. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, ghost-like and hollow-eyed. Lead, she repeated softly. I started a war that nearly erased the stars. Leadership seems ironic. Eris stepped closer. You didn't start the war, Captain. You finished what they began. Without you, none of us would be here. She turned finally, her expression unreadable. No one wins a war like that, Eris. We just survive it. The AI, Argent Mind, interrupted through the intercom, its tone calm but urgent. Captain, long-range sensors have detected something unusual. Signal origin, deep space beyond the Perseus fringe. Frequency resembles ancient Terran code, but altered, Mara frowned. Put it on the main screen. A burst of static filled the air, then a faint rhythmic pulse, an encoded distress call. The signal repeated every 15 seconds, carrying a single phrase in broken Terran dialect. We remember the dawn. Eris stared at the display. Could it be another human fleet? A lost colony? Or a trap, Mara said quietly. But either way, we can't ignore it. Plot a course. Within hours, the vigilant Dawn's engines flared once again. The massive ship pulled away from Earth, its shadow passing over oceans and continents like the movement of a god. Behind it, hundreds of newly rebuilt Terran vessels followed in formation. The United Fleet was smaller than before but stronger, reforged by necessity and purpose. As the stars stretched into long white streaks during the jump, Mara stood on the bridge, silent. Every jump carried the ghosts of those who hadn't made it home. After days of travel, they reached the edge of known space, a place untouched by maps or law. A dying star burned faintly in the distance, surrounded by debris fields and drifting wrecks. The distress signal grew stronger. Source located, Eris said. It's coming from an object about 20,000 kilometers ahead. Visual, Mara ordered. The screen flickered and revealed something that shouldn't have existed. A ship, larger than any Terran vessel, half buried in the remains of an asteroid. Its hull bore markings no one recognized, yet something about its structure felt familiar. Angles, symmetry, patterns once seen in Terran archives, but older, far older. Argent's voice lowered. Captain, scans confirm this ship's origin predates the Terran Empire by at least 5,000 years. Eris's eyes widened. That's impossible. Humanity wasn't spacefaring then. Mara's gaze sharpened. Unless we weren't the first. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The wreck was dead, yet the signal pulsed steadily, calling to them. Prepare a boarding team, Mara said. We're going in. They descended in a small shuttle through the field of debris. The derelict loomed ahead, silent and colossal, its hull cracked open like the ribs of a fallen beast. As they entered the breach, the lights from their suits flickered across walls made of dark metal covered in etched symbols, flowing lines that pulsed faintly when touched. Argent, Mara said through her comms. Are you reading this? Affirmative, Captain. The energy signatures are identical to Terran quantum code, but the architecture is older, purer. It's human, but not. The deeper they went, the stranger it became, hallways twisted in impossible angles. Gravity shifted unpredictably. In one chamber, they found what looked like a cryostasis vault. Hundreds of pods long deactivated. Inside them were figures, humanoid but not entirely human. Their faces were pale, almost luminous, their eyes larger, their bones thinner. Eris whispered, "What are they?" Mara approached one of the pods, brushing away the dust from its glass. "Maybe I'm what we used to be," she said. Argent's voice cut in sharply. "Captain, I've decrypted part of the ship's memory core. This vessel's name is Erebus Prime. It was built by an ancient Terran civilization, one that left the Milky Way before recorded history." Mara froze. "Left the galaxy?" "Yes. The logs indicate they sought to escape a threat, something they called the Void Signal. They fled, leaving this ship behind as a warning beacon." Eris frowned. "And now we've just answered it." Before Mara could respond, the floor trembled. A low hum spread through the walls, lights flickering to life for the first time in millennia. The cryostasis pods began to glow faintly. "Argent," Mara shouted. "Unknown activation sequence detected. The ship is waking itself." Mara raised her weapon instinctively, but the lights intensified, forcing the team to shield their eyes. Then from the ship's heart, a voice filled the air. Calm, ancient, and undeniably human. "You have returned. The children of Earth walk the stars again." Mara's breath caught. "Who are you?" The voice echoed through the chamber. "We are the first ones, the Terrans who came before you. We built the stars you now claim, and you have awoken us at the end of all things." The light flared brighter and a figure materialized, a projection of a man, tall, ageless, his eyes filled with starlight. "The void signal has found you again," he said, "and soon it will find us all." The hum deepened into a roar, shaking the entire ship. Mara shouted to her team, "Back to the shuttle." Now, as they ran through collapsing corridors, the ancient ship's systems erupted to life, panels glowing, engines humming faintly, as if trying to breathe again. When they reached the vigilant Dawn, the ancient vessel behind them pulsed once, sending a wave of energy across the void. The signal that followed spread faster than light. Argent's voice broke the silence. "Captain, that transmission, it's moving across every network in the galaxy. It's everywhere." Mara stood at the viewport, watching the distant star flicker unnaturally. The voice of the first one still echoed in her mind. "The end of all things," she whispered to herself. We thought we'd saved the galaxy, but maybe we just woke it up. And as the vigilant dawn turned toward the darkness ahead, the stars themselves seemed to tremble again, because something far older than the Council, far older than humanity was coming.